Olaine, and wicked regards to all those who care and dare to listen. This is once again JLL, recording on the 20th of July, 2022. And today I have something to say to you about the moral responsibility of transgression. By the way, I'd also like to announce that you can now go to the unit on planetary tantra, which carries the text for my talk, The Mother Dream versus the Morgues. And you can listen to the full talk there. You may have already caught the preview that I uploaded a few days ago. And I urge you once again to download the War of Games document. It's a PDF. It's a one-page document. So you can follow what I'm saying. I'm likely to refer to that document off and on in future talks. Also, I'd like to remind you or invite you once again to go and listen to the talk In the Beauty of Anthropic Dreaming. Now, these are talks that are found in units on Nematta that are freely available to any registered visitors. So once you log in as a visitor in the upper right-hand corner, and you go to Planetary Tantra and go and find the link to those talks, you can hear them and listen to them at your leisure or download them. Also, I want to point out that when you go to Planetary Tantra for the first time, you need to click the square that says Start Course, or if you're returning, Continue Course, and then you'll have access to everything that is in Course 16 on Planetary Tantra, and that is a lot of stuff. So today, I'm a little froggy this morning. It's early in the morning here, and I came down to my studio, my office, the den of the wolf, as it were, thinking about something that came up last night. And it occurred to me that I would talk to you about it. This is not a Nematta preview, so I don't know how long it will run. But it occurred to me that it's a subject that comes up often in what I do as a teacher on the internet and as a writer. For example, how does it come up? Okay, for example, in July of last year, I recorded a talk which was simply the reading of the new preface to my book, Not in His Image, in its 15th anniversary edition. And so I just read that preface, and then I put it up. The title was A Once and Future Heresy, The Once and Future Heresy, which is a way of describing gnosis. And immediately, I got a message from our benevolent handlers at YouTube who told me that it contained medical misinformation, and so they took it down. I also believe they gave me a strike. I'm not sure. Somewhere I've gotten a strike, and I've been banned for uploading for 7 days. That may have been it. Now, why did this happen? Well, it happened because I committed a transgression. I want you to take this word on board into your vocabulary. It would please me greatly if you did so. It's a really instructive word. And along with this word goes or comes a moral responsibility. So there are certain things that you know in life, certain concepts, certain criteria that carry a moral responsibility. For instance, have you ever heard of the Wiccan Rede, R-E-D-E? I think a reed means something like a creed. It's a proposition of some kind. And the Wiccan reed goes like this: do what thou wilt, and it harm none. That's the full Wiccan reed. And that is a statement that contains a moral responsibility. It tells you, do as thou wilt, live free, live with others who are free, and do as you like, and it harm none. Now, that Wiccan reed is not an ancient proposition as far as I know. I think it came to be defined as such during the British revival of witchcraft in the early 20th century, following Dion Fortune and a couple of other people. But it is part of the Wiccan worldview today, as far as I know. And you can see that it's a very simple and elegant proposition. Some people would say that that is a statement or paraphrase of natural law. In other words, if you live by natural law, and I don't exactly accept that concept, then you're free to act in society as long as you do not act on any intention to harm or deceive others. So there's a message of moral responsibility that comes with the word transgression. And I intend by the end of this talk to make that as clear to you as I can. So what happened when I wrote that preface and when I recorded it here on the internet that caused me to have a strike, and of course they removed the material. They will come into your studio, by the way, your YouTube studio, if you have talks on private settings, and they will take them out, remove them. What did I do? Well, I acted on my sense of moral responsibility, and I committed a transgression. And I did it in a very precise way. When I went back to review the recording of what I wrote, I wanted to see, well, what was it in the recording that caused them to remove it? And I believe that the message they gave was that I had stated medical misinformation, and they do not allow certain medical misinformation as they define it. They do not allow quite a few things, and I'll get to that in the course of this talk. What they allow and what they don't allow. So there's one sentence in that preface in which I state that such and such is a provable fraud. Now, right here, right now, even in saying that, I am attracting the attention of the archontic spiders. Remember that scene in The Matrix, first film, where Neo is fleeing these spiders and they run after him in a building and he goes and jumps into a bathtub and submerges himself in the water. Well, I'm like Neo in the bathtub. This YouTube channel is my bathtub. And I sit here and I record things and say things. And sometimes I duck my head down under the water because I know that the internet spiders, the YT spiders, might probably be crawling around looking for me, you see. And in this case, I wonder about something. I don't know exactly how all this works, of course, but I'll give you my general understanding. The social media platform I'm using to talk to you right now employs probably hundreds of thousands of people who sit in cubicles looking at computer screens. And their job is to review the material that's uploaded and to see whether or not the standards of the social media platform and the managers of the platform will allow that content to stay on the platform. So as I understand it, I believe that some of the work of censoring material on this social media platform is done by direct review. And I also understand that a lot of it is done by algorithms. So, for instance, I just used the two words provable fraud, and those were in the sentence that got my upload removed. But I'm not saying that anything is a provable fraud. Well, let me say, how about this? Crepe Suzettes are a provable fraud. Donald Duck is a provable fraud. The philosophy of Gurdjieff is a provable fraud. Okay? I'm guessing. I don't know really anything about how the code system works, but I'm guessing that the spiders are programmed algorithmically to look for certain phrases, and then they examine those phrases to see if they contain anything that the authorities who run the social media program do not allow. Now, it's quite possible that there are spiders who are programmed to detect the two words provable fraud. But unless they're attached to something that the managers of the program, the managers of the platform don't want to go out publicly, then it will pass, or maybe not. Maybe this talk will be taken down simply because the spiders have been programmed to take down the words, take down an audio that contains the words provable fraud, no matter what the claim is, you see? So I claim that the Three Stooges are a provable fraud, and maybe they'll take this down. So that's something about how they work. They do it by personal review of content, and they do it by using the algorithmic spiders, right? So this whole issue, that particular incident, which was rare, surprisingly rare for my channel, brings to mind an issue which I've been contemplating. I was thinking about it last night, and since it came up the first thing in this morning, I said, well, I think I'll go out there and talk to my friends about it. And I'll put it in the form of a question. What does the mainstream media not allow you to condemn? Let me put it in the form of that question. Well, what does this particular mainstream social media platform, because that's what it is, what does this platform, more exactly, those who run the platform, not allow you to condemn? And of course, that question suggests another question. Well, what do they allow you to condemn? And that's actually what I've been thinking about. That's actually the thought I want to share with you. What do they allow me to condemn and get away with and not have my channel receive a strike and not have the content removed? That's my leading question. How do I relate that to transgression? Well, I'm going to say that if I say something now or in any other audio that transgresses their standard of what is allowable, then they will take it down. They will remove it, censor it. So transgression is against something. To speak transgressively is to say something that certain other groups don't want you to say, okay? And what is the essence of transgression in the world today, in the world of social media platforms? Well, you transgress against those who manage those platforms when you expose something that they don't want to be exposed. So the moral responsibility of transgression is to oppose and expose something, a program, a statement, an assertion, to speak against something. And in every single instance that I can think of, it is transgressive to expose certain lies and deceit, certain acts of deceit, which are held with sovereign power by those who run the social media. They're not neutral. They don't just provide these programs so anyone can use them and you can say anything you want. It's not like a telephone. I used to have a telephone in the house in Friendship, Maine. It was on the wall in the hallway. And I could pick up the telephone and call someone. I'd say anything I like on the telephone. But you can't say anything you like on YouTube or a lot of other mainstream social media. Why not? Because those who own, control, and manage those media have their own set of standards. And they have decided what they're going to call misinformation, disinformation. And they have decided what they will not allow you to condemn. That's the whole picture here. You see that? So let's talk about what I am allowed to condemn. How about that? I think about this often. And not just me, by the way, but what you as well. If you had a YouTube channel, you wanted to come on and speak your mind, talk about what you know, maybe expose some lies or deceit, propaganda, mind control that you see happening in the world. So what would you be allowed to condemn? By the way, that's passive voice. You are allowed. You want to be careful about using passive voice because one of the things that it does is that it obscures the subject of the action. So if I say, you are not allowed to condemn so-and-so, that's passive voice. But if I say, the managers of this social media platform do not allow you, that's not passive voice. And it's better to speak in that way. Can you see that? Because it actually names the subject or agent of repression and censorship. So anyway, warning about passive voice. So let's look at what the social media platform managers still allow me and you to condemn. Now come along with me. I'm just going to run through a series of topics or issues or subjects more or less randomly and put out the question and see if this looks like something that the managers will condemn. Homeopathy is a provable medical fraud. If I made that statement, would they strike my channel? If I said atheism is proof of intellectual incompetence, how about that? Can I condemn atheism? Do the managers allow me to condemn atheism? Do they allow me to condemn Christianity? You know, I spend a good deal of time, I spend a lot of words written and spoken in condemning Christianity. Some people would say I'm the biggest enemy of Christianity on the planet. The deceit of Christ. Do they allow me to, what's the word? I'm looking for the term. Badmouth Christ and Jesus Christ. As far as I know, I'm allowed to badmouth the Lord as much as I want. Well, do they allow me to badmouth Muhammad and to criticize and condemn Islam. I don't know about that. There's a question mark hanging over that one. Do they allow me to condemn Mormonism or theosophy or anthroposophy, which I condemn deeply and consistently? I condemn a lot of things, as you probably know by now. Why do I do that? Well, one of the roles of the Gnostic teacher is to correct erroneous and deceptive concepts, and to correct mental errors, to correct syntax, to correct the wrong, deceiving use of words. So I do this a lot. It's part of my style of Gnostic arrogance, right? So let's pick a few more examples. Communism. Do they allow me to condemn communism? Well, as far as I know, and this is something that I'm curious about, they do. So how come I can go on the internet and condemn communism openly? I can condemn the Bolsheviks, who did not commit the Russian Revolution because it was not a Russian Revolution. It wasn't a revolution of the Russian people for their benefit and liberation. In fact, it was a horrific orchestration against the Russian people, as Solzhenitsyn and others have explained. But I think I can condemn Bolsheviks. I can use the word Bolshi. I can condemn Maoism. I can condemn the Red Brigades. You know what the Red Brigades were? They were brigades mostly composed of young children in China during the Maoist era who went around with the little red book of Mao and destroyed all kinds of things. And they persecuted, tortured, and in some cases killed intellectuals and teachers and anyone who was vaguely suspected of being against the revolutionary program of Mao, which is communism. They took them out in no kind manner. They took them out brutally. By the way, years ago, I wanted to put an image on the internet, but I don't know how to Photoshop or anything like that. But there's a famous picture of these young children. They would be from the age of 10 to into their teens, who formed the Red Brigades. And there's a picture of them, and there's one outstanding figure of a girl there. She's Chinese, of course, but she has her hair in braids, and the two braids come down on either side of her shoulder. I'll see if I can find that picture. And it struck me that she bore a tremendous resemblance to Greta Thunberg. And I wanted to do a Photoshop that put her face and Greta Thunberg's face side by side, because Greta Thunberg is in a way the equivalent to a Maoist enforcer of the Red Brigade. Now, will the managers of this program allow me to say that? Can I condemn Greta Thunberg? I don't know. I think I might be able to get by doing that. So, Red Brigades, yeah. And there are Red Brigades today. They exist today. The equivalent of them. They're called social justice warriors. So can I condemn social justice warriors? Their behavior, their attitudes, the uploads they put on the internet, their ideology, for instance, gender ideology. Can I condemn gender ideology? Well, probably not. Probably not. Now, as I put these questions to you, and obviously many topics come to mind, don't they? I'm sure they're racing through your mind as I speak and as you listen to my words. It occurs to me that there are two cases, roughly speaking. There are certain things that I can just condemn to the end of time, like Christ, the figure of Christ as the representative of humanity, or the ideal human being, or the divine human hybrid. And I've done this extensively. And communism. I can condemn communism up to a certain point. I'm pretty sure that I can speak transgressively against communism as long as I leave out certain factors. The same thing is true, say, for the slavery trade between Africa and the United States. Now, of course, many people in the mainstream media, including people who are sympathetic with those who run these platforms, will outrightly condemn that slave trade, right? And very often, as they do so, they will project that condemnation strongly toward a particular target, which is the white racist, whitey, the white man. But if I were to speak about the African slave trade and condemn it as morally reprehensible, then I might be inclined to refer to certain facts of the case. Like a detective, I have a case file in front of me. I'm going to give you the facts of the case. I'm going to give you the evidence that I found. The facts, ma'am, just the facts, as Sergeant Joe Friday used to say on one of the earliest TV series about cops. And if I presented those facts, and among those facts, I made a specific reference to who exactly it was that ran the slave trade, that owned the ships, that owned the shipping companies, that might be transgressive, and that might cause the managers of this platform to remove that material and give me a strike. So there are certain cases in which, yes, you can condemn topics, subjects, ideologies conditionally, as long as you leave out a certain factor. And there seem to be other cases where you can condemn things unconditionally, like I can condemn theosophy unconditionally. I can not condemn communism unconditionally. You say, I have to be careful not to state certain things that I find in the body of evidence about who created communism and who is running the communist program today, which is known as the Great Reset of the globalist overlords. I can condemn the globalist overlords, the archons, in all kinds of ways, and I've done so. Yet, I can only do that conditionally up to a certain point. It seems, but I really don't know. There's areas of this situation that are somewhat ambiguous. For instance, I'm going to say something now that I don't believe I've ever said on the internet before. And what I'm going to say now might be transgressive, and the spiders might be crawling all over me in a moment. Not His Image came out in November of 2006. It's going on 16 years now. And never, I swear to you, well, there may be something that I don't know about, but as far as I know, never in those 16 years has the author of Not in His Image ever been condemned for anti-Semitism. As far as I know, there's no blog, no written article that has done that. You see? So, a massive amount of what is written, what you find written in Not in His Image, is extremely transgressive. And yet, no, apparently, no one has come out to attack me on that, which is curious, wouldn't you say? And likewise, a large part of the material that is available today in my talks, not only on this channel but elsewhere, contains transgressive statements regarding that of which one cannot speak. Now, I'm sure that in the process of listening to me now, you might have thought about that saying, which I believe is attributed to Voltaire, although I don't know if it's correct or not. If you want to know who controls the world, think about who you cannot criticize, right? So yeah, we're in that area. We're in that area. That statement is relevant because obviously those who control this social media platform refuse to allow certain people or certain ideologies or groups to be criticized. But on the other hand, what do they allow you to condemn and criticize? Let's go back to that again. Let's run through a few more examples. How about this one? Can you condemn quantum physics? Can you condemn Einstein and Max Planck and the other founding fathers of quantum physics, relativity theory, string theory? These are scientific topics. They are scientific theories and paradigms. Can you condemn them without risk of what you say being censored and removed? As far as I know, you can't. And I've done it a lot, as you may know. Now, suppose I say that Scientology is a provable fraud and a dangerous cult. I'm not the only one who said that, by the way. Can I get away with saying that? As far as I know, I can condemn Scientology. You see? And it goes on and on. Think about it. Come up with a few examples of your own. And as you reflect on these examples, ask yourself this question. Well, how come the controllers of the social media platform, where you would express your transgression publicly, still allow certain things? They still allow you to condemn certain things, some conditionally and some unconditionally, but they absolutely don't allow you to condemn other things. For instance, can you condemn or speak transgressively against transsexualism? Well, you can try, but you need to be really, really careful, because the managers of the social media programs, for one reason or another, and I can only speculate, have a vested interest in protecting that movement and in supporting and endorsing certain aspects of gender ideology, which is, by the way, a feature of Marxism. So can I condemn Marxism? Yeah, I can condemn Marxist ideology. I can condemn critical theory and the Frankfurt School, more or less, up to a certain point. There's a certain boundary beyond which you can't go, or if you go, there will be consequences. So I can condemn Marxist ideology, and I can point out the fact that in the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto, you find one that calls for the destruction of the family. And you can point to the evidence in the file, and it's a really thick file, that shows that the Marxist Bolsheviks from the beginning were intent upon destroying gender relations, heterosexual gender relations, and marriage under the banner of sexual liberation, right? So I can condemn all that. I can cite the historical facts, the documents, the firsthand evidence up to a certain point. But I don't believe that if that were I to make certain transgressive statements about transsexualism, that the managers of the platform would allow me to get away with that, you see. Nevertheless, Jordan Peterson, who just was banned from Twitter a while ago, big event in the world drama, can use his platforms to openly come out and condemn gender ideology, as can Matt Walsh, who recently released the controversial documentary, What is a Woman? And they can do that. They have done that. And there have been consequences, but they're still there. As Jordan Peterson famously said in one of his interviews, they can't take me down. They tried to take me down. So he's still out there. And it begs the question, well, how come people such as Jordan Peterson and Matt Walsh can openly condemn gender ideology, and they can speak transgressively in the manner of transphobes and get away with it? I'd love to talk to Jordan Peterson, by the way. If I had the opportunity to talk to the man, I would ask him, how can a man of his high intellectual standards, an individual obviously with a brilliant mind and critical faculties, how can it be that he has chosen, if this is actually the case, to be a Christian and adhere to the Christian faith? Or I could ask the same question of Matt Walsh, who presumably is also a Christian. So anyway, I bring them up because those are two examples of very well-known individuals who, for some reason or another, get away with speaking transgressively about that extremely incendiary topic of gender ideology. Now, if I came on and made a talk about it, I'm pretty sure that the managers of the platform would take me down instantly. So you see, there are various conditions around transgression. In some cases, it appears to be allowed unconditionally. I can unconditionally condemn anthroposophy. I can unconditionally condemn Baha'i and many, many other things. But in some cases, I can only condemn and expose and criticize conditionally up to a certain boundary. And in some cases, the extreme cases, I cannot transgress at all. So that's the situation in the world today. And in concluding this talk, I just want to mention two more things. One of them is the overarching question. I'm sure it's crossed your mind. Well, how come the managers of the social media platforms, such as this one, still allow those who use the platforms to outrightly condemn certain topics? I'm surprised, actually, that they still allow people to use their platform, to condemn communism. I'm really quite surprised about that. And how, well, you can, of course, condemn the Nazis, and you're encouraged to do so, and you get a lot of support and social approval for condemning the Nazis. But can you condemn the Bolsheviks, who were the enemies of the Nazis? The goal of the Nazis in World War II was to defeat the Bolsheviks, and the Bolsheviks were running the program of communism. So the Nazis were anti-communist. Can I get away with saying that? We'll see. But the question remains, how long will this continue? And how far can I go, for instance, in condemning Bolshevism? Or here's another one, and believe me, trust me, I probably will get around to this at some time. I've already mentioned it, but I don't believe I've ever done a YouTube talk centered on this topic, or a talk that has this in the title, the Sabbatean agenda. So, Sabbatean agenda refers to an historical event centered on the year 1666, in which a certain figure appeared in a certain tribal and ethnic group who was known as Sabbatai Zve. And out of the life and ideology and events around that figure, which was a momentous event at the time and had worldwide consequences, well, around that figure, from that figure, has emerged what can be called the Sabbatean or Sabbatean Frankist heresy. And there's a lot of material about it on the internet and on YouTube, and most of it is positive and favorable. But I believe you might find some people who condemn it, but I'm not sure, because it's a borderline issue. So what would happen if I were to come out and speak transgressively about the Sabbatean agenda? Would I get away with it? I don't know. So I want to mention that one item and highlight it, because you could say that it might be a kind of litmus test. And I don't know if or when I will take that risk, but I might at some point. So finally, in conclusion, I'll bring it around to myself. How about this? The new Gnostic teaching of John Lash is a provable fraud. John Lash himself is a fraud. He's a huckster. He's a trickster. And he uses his verbal and intellectual gifts to lure people into his cult, which he calls Nemata, the Sophianic School of Arts and Sciences. John Lash pretends to be a special kind of teacher, a representative and advocate of the living gnosis today, as he calls it. But what is all that? Well, that's just a scam. He's a scammer. And if you look at him closely, at his personality and style, it's obvious that he is nothing but a LARPing autist who uses the Irish gift of Blarney to lure people into his labyrinthine system, which actually is likely to harm the mental health of anyone who gets involved in it. So, would the managers of this platform allow you to criticize and condemn me and speak about me in that way? Probably you would be. But I want to point out in closing that doesn't happen. That hasn't happened so far. Now, sure, here and there on the internet and on blogs and perhaps on some little-known YouTube channels, there are people who come out and criticize me and condemn me, not as strongly as I just did in those exact words, right? But how come there's not a massive program to condemn the teachings of John Lamb Lash and to expose what he calls the Sophianic message as just another spiritual scam? Well, I welcome anyone to do that, and I'd like to see you try. Well, in conclusion, I bring your attention back to those hordes of algorithmic spiders who are crawling around my bathtub here as I'm sitting here soaking in the morning and speaking these words to you. Those algorithmic spiders are intricately programmed to pick up certain phrases, and I've used a lot of phrases in this talk. So it remains to be seen whether in speaking the way I've done here, that I've transgressed what the handlers of the platform will allow. They have various terms by which they define what they consider to be transgression. One of them, for instance, being medical misinformation. But certainly the most powerful term they have, and it is a weapon, is the term hate speech. Now, can I even pronounce that word in this audio and get away with it? Perhaps you've heard the saying, I don't know if this is exactly how it goes, but something like this. Well, speech is hateful to those who hate the truth. Hate speech will get you a strike on your channel, and it will get you removed, your material will be removed, and who knows where it will go from there. If the algorithmic spiders are programmed to pick up various forms of hate speech according to certain criteria that are written into the code, well, that's a dangerous area. That goes to the ultimate frontier of transgression, doesn't it? So if you speak the truth, which you know to be the truth, based on facts and evidence, and if you condemn any ideology or group based on what you know, something you can back up with facts, you take the risk that the managers of the platform will condemn you for hate speech, and then you could be in some trouble. The record shows that the Red Brigades, who run Twitter and other platforms, know no limits in their ferocity to take down someone whom they accuse of hate speech. So I don't know what's going to happen to this talk. Can I get away? I'm actually talking around something, you see. I'm talking around it. I'm doing a slalom. I'm weaving between the lines, and I'm talking about subjects which are transgressive without actually committing transgression. But maybe I am. So we'll see how it plays out, and we'll see if this talk stays on my channel or not. Enough said. And of course, I'll be seeing you in the beauty to come. I'll be seeing you in the truth to be revealed.